Hey everybody, welcome to the Pet Food Puzzle Guy. I was just looking at a comment from somebody that was talking about pecan shells being in Hill's diets. And of course, why would you put pecan shells in a dog food or a cat food? And because they're looking at an ingredient, they're not looking at the whole diet. So I thought, hey, Hills has been doing a lot of things with prebiotics, and Purina's done a lot with probiotics. And you hear everybody selling a gut formula out there, and you hear just all that kind of information all the time. So let's just take a look at it as pet parents without getting too deep into the technology. I hope to actually have do an interview with somebody that is a board certified nutritionist that specializes in the microbiome. I think that would really be cool. But this is going to be from the 30,000 foot level. Okay, so let's just get some of the terminology correct and understand what's going on. And if nothing else, just so that you're not confused and frustrated or have any anxiety over this whole gut health issue. So let's jump in. Okay, so when we talk about the microbiome, we're talking about the bacteria that's in the intestinal tract, the colon, the small intestines, and it is you have to think about millions of microbes, and there's good and bad, and there's this careful balance, and it's really, if you think about your dog's gut, this is true with us as well. It's a very unique ecosystem. It's totally supportive of itself, and it balances itself. And it's kind of like I was trying to think of an example would be like if you look in Arizona, the Sonoran Desert out there, where the Sonoran sorrows, the big sorrows cactuses go. I'll put a picture up here. If you've never seen it, you really need to get outside Tucson, Arizona. It's really amazing. It's one of the few places in the world that you see this ecosystem, but it's a total unique ecosystem. Then if you compare that to where I live in Colorado, you got the Rocky Mountains, okay, a whole different ecosystem. You really can't take pine trees from the alpine area and put it down in the desert. You sure don't want to take a poor cactus from the desert and put it up in Rocky Mountain National Park. Um, and so think about the microbes or the microbiome, whichever word you want to use, but that's what we're talking about. And it used to be years ago, before all this research had been done into the microbiome, that it was really just a GI deal, that those were the microbes that broke down food and either dealt with diarrhea or constipation, that kind of thing. And that was pretty much all, at least as a layman, that's what most of us I think thought of it. We didn't realize there was lots of research going on, and now you've probably heard it is the microbiome in your gut is an important part of your immune system. They're now learning, if you look at the renal diet from Hills KD, they changed the formula in there to manage the gut, because they through the research they realized that the gut was actually causing more damage to the kidneys. So the microbes that were in there, I don't want to get deep into this. I hope to get a specialist on here, but if you have too much protein going into that pet's diet, it's actually going to increase some of the microbe growth in the GI tract, which is actually going to harm the kidneys. So isn't it amazing how everything is so connected, and you could just go deeper and deeper into the science rabbit hole. And that's what the professionals do. You don't hear about it much, but like I said, I hope to get somebody on that could go through this and really dig a little deeper than what I'm going to share with you. But so you think about that ecosystem, and then somehow it gets imbalanced, it gets destroyed. Antibiotics would be a good example. Disease, genetics has something to do with it too. But for whatever reason, giardia would be another example, right? You have the microbiome is disrupted and imbalanced, and it's leading to, again, we used to just look at the GI effect of it. Now we realize, holy cow, it affects everything. I know Hills is even working on looking at the microbiome in respect to cognitive function. So it's lots of exciting research going on. And again, just from what I'm watching, it seems Hills is kind of focusing on the prebiotics, where Purina just came out with a bunch of different probiotics, for calming and things like that. So they seem to be leaning toward the probiotics. So what is that actually? What's what's pro, all this kind of stuff? Let's just talk about it real quick. Prebiotics is basically the fiber sources that feed the bacteria, that feed the microbes. Okay, so you could almost kind of say any fiber source in a food is affecting the microbes or feeding them, but there was never a lot of research into what specific fiber sources. And they not all fiber is a prebiotic, but prebiotics are basically the fiber source in the food that is nurturing the microbes. And again, Hills did a lot of research to find out, well, which ones do what and how do we figure this out to work this to our advantage. And I will tell you that prebiotics, understand what that is. That's not the bacteria itself. It's just what feeds the bacteria. Then there's probiotics. Now, probiotics, Fortiflora would be a perfect example from Purina. I've seen it work really well. That is actually introducing bacteria into the gut to do its job. Okay, so prebiotics is basically feeding the bacteria. Probiotics is actively adding it to the pet's system. Um, I will tell you that Hills, before I retired, they were doing lots of research and came out with a diet, GI Biome. And basically, to make this really short, they went ahead and looked at all these different fiber sources, all these different prebiotics, insoluble, soluble. I mean, there's just a whole lot to this to find out what actual prebiotics would do the best job of just feeding and nurturing and restoring the natural bacteria, the natural microbiome of that particular pet, rather than just adding random fiber that helps absorb moisture and may help deal with the diarrhea. I mean, or pumpkin, that kind of approach. What actual prebiotics could really restore that GI tract back to health? In other words, bring that balance of microbes back to where it belongs. And that was all the work that went into the final result of GI Biome. And they looked at, I believe it was about 55 different prebiotics, all different sources and combinations and all this other stuff to come up with what would go in the diet. So what they did, pecan shells was one of the prebiotics that got added to GI Biome, one of a few. And let's see if I'm just looking at the ingredient panel here. And ground pecan shells is the first one I see. Powdered cellulose would be another one. Flaxseed, I'm not sure if that would fall in that category. Beet pulp definitely would. Uh, Dried citrus pulp, that would be another one. It's kind of like, so if you think about it, it's all the wood parts of these ingredients that, and I'm going to guess most of these are insoluble. A few might be soluble, but the whole idea is this is the combination that works. And I can tell you when GI Biome came out, the Hills marketing, if you want to call it that, was that, hey, you might see results in as little as 24 hours, even in a dog with chronic diarrhea. And I was a little skeptical of that. And I said, well, remember the key words here, in as little as. So it may take a couple days, whatever. So that's how I stressed it to my doctors. And sure enough, the stuff very often worked within 24 hours. People were really shocked and thrilled. And it really has kind of been a game changer for doctors dealing with chronic diarrhea and chronic constipation as well, and megacolon. And again, not just a canine formula, but there is a feline formula as well, both canned and dry. So that was how all that came about, and that's the result of what Hills was, all the research they were doing with the microbiome. From that, they realized, hey, we have to take this benefit and put it in some of our other diets. This is too good. And I think that's where the comment of somebody put out there, oh, I saw pecan shells in the science diet food and they're changing the formula and it looks different and blah, blah, blah. So again, it's just an example of Hills is making these changes for good scientific reasons. They've learned a lot. They're learning about the GI biome. They're learning about the microbiome, and they're making these changes to some of the other therapeutic diets like KD, but they're also making those changes and adding those benefits to regular science diet products, which just makes science diet products even better. That's the whole point here. But for those of you using science diet or going in and kind of looking at this, you're going to see it's going to be a little confusing for a little while. But I think it's great that Hills is doing this. It just shows again the millions of dollars that go into research that certain retailers out there online want to say is nothing but marketing and it's gimmicks, and don't trust your veterinarian, and surely don't trust the diets from the big three. Here's a real life example of research being done and being implemented and put into diets to actually make a difference in animals' lives. So here's the bag of one of the foods. They had a sign that said the bags are changing with the new formula, and I could tell that they're kind of in the middle of flux, making changes. You have some old bags, you have some new bags. Some of you may not know, but you have months to change a bag, even if you've changed the formula inside. So, bag changes. Certain sizes are going to change. New bags will come in before maybe the big bags. We'll still have the old. So any store could, right now, if you're a Science Diet user, or you go in there and look, you might see, like I said, they're kind of stuck in the middle of getting this done. But I turned it over just to look at the bag, and I did not call Hills. I'm just acting as a consumer here. I didn't want to try to, well, I know this from talking to Hills or whatever. This is just as a consumer what I could find. And on the back of the bag, over 75 years, science, health, and care. I like that. Our nutrition is developed by over 200 nutritionists and veterinarians to give our best science-led nutrition to your pet. 200 nutritionists and veterinarians. That's a lot. I'm kind of thinking maybe that's over the 75 years. I mean, they usually have about 6 board certified nutritionists on staff at any time. At least that's been my experience. Then, of course, there's the food scientists and the chemists and all that, but maybe they're including all the veterinarians. I don't know, but whatever. I just caught my eye, 200 nutritionists. I'm not sure how to take that. But anyway, I'm just ranting now. Let's get on to here you go. The Active Biome Plus multi-benefit. These companies have to come up with marketing jargon. They just can't say, with new formula, with new prebiotics. But what does it say? Helps to build a foundation for lifelong health by supporting digestion, immune system, and organ health with a special blend of prebiotic fibers and antioxidants. So let's just stop right there. Definitely digestion, it makes a big impact. Everybody has seen that, especially with GI biome. Also, the immune system. Again, everybody kind of knows that now, and they're still studying more of that. And organ health, even kidney health is affected by the microbiome. And like I said, they're working on looking at the cognitive function and the deterioration based on the health of the gut. So, and I know it's not just Hills. I mean, worldwide, this is just a big deal. We are going to learn a lot about those microbes in our gut that we didn't really want to give much time to is going to be really important in the future. So with a special blend of prebiotic fibers, that's what I just listed off the ones that are in my GI biome, and antioxidants. And if you do look, I know Dr. Ray has reviewed a few Science Diet products, and whenever you look at the antioxidant level, it like blows everybody away. Nobody comes close. You need about, what is it, 400, 500 international units per kilogram of food to get to the level that it's actually therapeutic. Hills, you'll see in many diets, is 1,200, 1,300 international units. So I remember that from the 90s. Hills was doing lots of research into antioxidants and looking at alkanol levels and cellular damage, free radicals, all this stuff. So you'll always find that. So I like when I see something where this is kind of, they're marketing here with their little active biome plus multi-benefit. But when I look at it, I know there's real science behind it. So we'll let the marketing people have their fun. Main thing is the science and nutrition there. And it sure is. Now they're into the whole microbiome research. Now, before some of you ask me, well, what supplements would you use or what probiotics would you use? That is not my area of expertise. I could tell you from experience, I saw the Purina Fortiflora work really well. And that was before I was a big proponent of probiotics, made total sense to me, especially for dogs chronic that needed it. But then when I learned about prebiotics and why not restore the natural gut in that dog instead of introducing new bacteria in all the time. So prebiotics makes a lot more sense to me long term than probiotics. Probiotics maybe go through a box, and that's how I would tell people. and even my doctors, if you go through a box of Fortiflora, diarrhea is cleared up, everything's great, and then you stop and the diarrhea comes back, what does that tell you? Clearly the microbiome has issues, because if you're not giving it microbes, you have issues. So again, you can continue doing that, but you're putting in microbes that are not going to colonize. They don't belong to the dog, so they'll do the job, but they're not going to colonize there. Doesn't it make sense? More natural, holistic approach, if you want to use that term, excuse me, to go ahead and feed that bacteria, to feed that the microbes, to develop their natural balance again, and then you're great. To me, that's a much more natural approach than introducing random fiber or probiotic. And again, it's pretty expensive to do that too. So for those of you out there, if you have a dog or a cat for that matter, and it's just chronic loose stools, diarrhea, you've come off Giardia, maybe you've come off antibiotics, things like that, I will tell you the GI biome is pretty amazing. Now, I am not sponsored by Hills. I didn't read any script from Hills. They're not paying me a penny to tell you this. I just know how awesome this diet is. And again, with all the discussion about microbiome out there. And I will tell you, there is a science diet product. Again, Hills, when they got all this great results with GI biome, they've advanced it into other diets. They made I don't want to call it a Me Too or a copy, but they made a science diet version of GI biome called Perfect Digestion. And I have seen that work just as well. Of course, it's science diet. You get it, through Chewy, whatever, no prescription needed. And again, I've seen it work, I tell you, almost just as good, if not just as good as the GI biome, because it has the same prebiotic technology in it. So again, if you're dealing with these chronic issues, I would say get in, excuse me, get an 8-pound bag of the Perfect Digestion, depending on the size of your dog. Feed it for 24, 48 hours. If you don't see some real nice changes, just take the bag back and get a full refund. So, I mean, there's no risk involved. But I will tell you, it works that fast. Now maybe not for every dog or cat, but I've seen it work really fast. And so there you go. And if you're feeding probiotics just as a preventative, you're probably wasting your money. The diet you're on is probably, if it's a good diet, it's producing a good balance in that pet. You don't need to be changing proteins and all that to be changing the bacteria in the gut. There's no discussion of that among the experts. That's just kind of pet food marketing to get you to buy their different flavors, I think. Um, but again, probiotics is one of those things, unless your pet needs it. And if they have kidney disease, again, the whole idea of probiotics with kidney disease, it's new to me. I know Hills puts it in their diet, but I can't recommend a supplement out there. There could be some really good, legit ones, but Hills is already addressed that in the diet. So if you're on KD, I don't think you need the probiotics. If you're not on KD, your dog won't touch it. They won't touch Royal Canin or Purina's renal diets. Yeah, then maybe a probiotic that's designed for kidney health, that makes a lot of sense to me. I'm just so skeptical because there's so little regulation on supplements. But that will be a new thing you're going to be seeing more and more is prebiotics and probiotics probably being used for disease conditions. The microbiome is here to be the big deal for a long time, and of course that means the pet food marketers are going to go crazy with it, and we're going to hear all kinds of BS. But what are you going to do? It's the world we live in. But anyway, I think I'm going to stop here. I just wanted to show you, this is, again, a great example of how we got to be careful not to become ingredientists and looking at an ingredient and just demonizing that ingredient or questioning why would Hills put, well, that's a good, why would Hills put that ingredient in there? That's a good question, okay? But not coming at it from, oh, they're trying to make my dog sick, or just it's a cheap filler. Of course, that's what you hear all the time. There's a reason for every one of those ingredients, and the pecan shells and the citrus pulp and all that stuff, which sounds pretty bizarre. Why would it be in there? It's based on millions of dollars worth of research and years of research, and that's why it's in there. So again, I'm a little biased, but I tend to trust these people that are doing all the research and are coming up with such great diets to do such great things. So if you see on Science Diet, you see the change and you see that, the little logo on there, Just be patient. It shouldn't affect your dog's taste and GI tract, but it might. I don't think Hill's put out anything saying, you should transition. So I don't think you have to. Not that big a change. But I will tell you, just to really muddy, here we go. I'm going to muddy the waters here with science. I was talking to one of the nutritionists at Hill's, a couple months ago now, and she was saying, "Hey, now that we're changing these prebiotic formulas in the diet, absorption may change, digestibility, or no absorption, I guess, bioavailability, not so much digestion, but um, they may change to the point where we have to tweak the mineral content or the vitamin content because now the absorption rate has changed because of the fiber in the food." Okay, and that is well known. Anybody that's in nutrition, not the ingredientist, they have no clue, but the nutritionists know when you add fiber and start increasing fiber, you have to adjust other things that are affected by the fact that there's fiber in the diet. And higher fiber, actually, if now that I think about it, affects almost everything: protein, minerals, all kinds of stuff. So we may actually see in the future some of the dry matter percentage of minerals in science diet change. Why? Because they have to adjust to the different fiber sources now. So there you go, just to really make you like, okay, so now what's the right number? The small animal clinical nutrition become obsolete now because now we're playing with prebiotics and microbiome. Maybe it may be time that the microbiome is going to change things, and I don't know how you would evaluate that. So now that I've totally confused you, and I totally apologize, I will try to get that specialist on and see if she can clarify a little bit. But it just shows this is much more complicated and tougher than people think. It's not just give them protein, give them fat, give them, and carbs are bad, blah, blah, blah. There's so much more science to it that we miss out on that's there. So hopefully that just makes you trust some of these bigger companies a little more and not think that they're all out to just rip you off and hurt your pet. All right. You all take care. We'll see you.